Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. DJ here, HandsOnSAPDev with Q Macro. That's me. Welcome, everybody. It's Friday again, a frosty Friday morning here in Manchester, at least. Very slippy underfoot on the run this morning. And I had to defrost Michelle's car twice. I did it a little bit early and then it frosted over again. So, yeah, so here we are. Who have we got on the stream? We've got Freddie. Good morning, Freddie. Good morning, Manuel. Good morning, Pierre, Robertino, Leo. Good morning. Howdy, everybody. It's really great to have you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this episode. Well, I'm looking forward to, I always look forward to episodes, all episodes. Got my coffee. I've just brewed it now. I'm drinking out of the this SAP sort of, it says here, e-coffee cup. I'm not sure whether that's E as in electronic email e-coffee, or is it eco as in ecologically friendly or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm drinking some e-coffee cup based coffee from Packed Coffee, and we got a packed agenda for today. I'm just going to get rid of that little message there. Yeah, good morning. Anyway, so where are we? It's Friday. I've just come back from Oslo, did a code jam there with Ronnie, which was great. Hey, Volker, Morgan. By the way, if you haven't already registered for the recap conference or unconference in Heidelberg in May, go to the recap site. I'm sure Volker can put the URL in the chat if you don't already know it. I think it's recap.satmentos.io or something. I can't remember. GitHub, whatever. So let's get started. Let me just switch to the main scene. That should be fine. And yeah, I've got a few things I wanted to just share with you, just as show, and then we'll get right on to what I want to cover today, which is to continue where we left off last Friday. I'm sort of, getting a regular Friday slot again. The previous one, the one before last Friday, was a bit weird because I was in Lyon. I was traveling back from Lyon, where I'd done another co-jam with Pierre. So thanks, Pierre, for organising that. Mahesh, good day to you, sir. Good day. Good day, I guess. It's not morning anymore, maybe, or maybe it is. I don't know. Can't work it out. But anyway, yes. So there we go. Let me just take you through a couple of things. First of all, yeah, by the way, I've put my camera in the middle now, so I'm not sort of looking over here and then looking over here for the chat. I've been reading, not all yet, but some of the blog posts from my friend and colleague Vitaly Rudnicki Sigismundovich on Twitter. And he's doing a series on understanding containers. Really fun. And he being a data and database wonk, Vitaly is using, for example, OrientDB as one of the things that he puts into a container and runs in a container. So that's really cool. He's tagging everything that he does with a user tag called understand containers. I'm going to put that in the chat there. I'm looking forward to reading part 3 today, or this weekend anyway, because the thing intrigues me. The title intrigues me, and it reminds me of something that I wanted to share with you as well. So there's the understanding containers. I've got this, as you probably know, the regulars will probably know, I always put this little folder here in my bookmarks toolbar with things I want to share. I think it was Jacob Kier tweeted just before and pointed to this blog post by Richard Troy. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not sure. As in true. Really, really interesting proof of concept. Deliberately underlining, in sort of in the sky, proof of concept in the air. I'm not sure where this is going, but it's a fascinating idea that, okay, well, let's split up the R3 architecture based application server and deploy it on Kubernetes. And I'm looking forward to reading this in detail. As of course, many of us, not all of us, but many of us will know, the ABAP stack or the R3 architecture basically consists of a number of work processes coordinated by a dispatcher, and you have enqueue, and you have update, and you have dialogue, and you have batch and spool, and so on. And you've got a message server that sort of coordinates things. DVBMGS00. Who remembers that? Who DVEBMGS0? That'll be permanently etched in my brain as the the moniker or the identity of a central instance of an SAP system, instance number 00 on a particular host, with all the different types of work process: dialogue, verbucher, update, enqueue, batch, message, gateway, not gateway as what we call gateway today, and spool. Anyway, hey Jeremy, welcome. Welcome. Are you over in Lyon? Down in Lyon? Welcome anyway, from wherever you are. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And that reminded me that I wanted to just show you a couple of things. I'm digging in a little bit to containers, specifically Docker and also Kubernetes. And I'm also, as you probably know, a big fan of the terminal, and not only sort of the command line in the terminal and the amazingly beautiful concept of the Unix command line pipeline with the pipe operator and so on, and the Unix philosophy of doing one thing and doing it well and so on, and constructing more complex arrangements of these programs. Sort of like, sort of in a functional style way, composing functions together. And with that also, I've remembered wearing my Functor t-shirt today, which is very nice. I might wear that next time I go down to Waldorf as well. So I'm looking at Kubernetes, lots of different things relating to Kubernetes, and I came across, just by accident, this really awesome Kubernetes CLI. Well, actually, I would call it a TUI, a terminal user interface. And that TUI is for managing, it's quite a strange logo, but anyway, that Kubernetes is for managing, TUI is for managing Kubernetes. So I'm going to just show you, but where are you? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so if I go across to over there, I've got my my personal MacBook Pro, slightly older one, but that's running Minikube, which is a VM that runs on VirtualBox, and so I've got Kubernetes running on there. So I'm just going to SSH. By the way, I'll show you why I didn't have to specify a user ID over. I'm QMacro on this host where I just was on this Linux container inside the Termina VM on Crostini, which is on Chrome OS. But I've SSH'd over to Gargantua Brain, which is that machine just behind me. 10 points to anybody who can tell me where the name Gargantua Brain comes from. And I didn't have to specify the user DJ. I've been digging in a little bit into trying using these tools a little bit more intelligently. SSH, for example, fundamental tools that are fundamentally important for cloud and Kubernetes and Docker and generally managing the new mainframe. I'll show you how I did that in a minute. But anyway, I've got this, and I've got K9S installed. I just wanted to show you how awesome it looks. I mean, how beautiful is that? That is a proper UI. And that sort of was just a bit of a segue into something that I wanted to share as well, which was dry. So I'm learning about Kubernetes, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm still sort of hacking my way around. I'm reading this awesome book by Jeff Geerling called Ansible for Kubernetes. So I'm learning about Ansible as well. Pierre, that's in the right sort of ballpark. It's not Terry Pratchett, but it's in the right ballpark. I am so British. Oh dear, that's an embarrassing compliment. I don't want to be associated with the British at the moment, because idiots voting for Brexit. But anyway, thank you. I think maybe not. So in the same spirit of K9S, and I guess that's why there's a dog logo, K9, yeah. There's another terminal user interface for managing Docker. And it's nice as it is, right? It's a really nice thing, which I'll show you. But the thing that really sort of blew my mind, in a small way, but blew my mind, was if I scroll down here, okay, well, how do you install it? It's called dry, Docker, I don't know, something. I don't know what it stands for. So of course you can, do the regular sort of download of a script via curl and then run that script as root, and then that will cause the download and installation of the binary in user local bin, or you can just download the binaries directly, or you can use brew on Mac OS X or OS X, Mac OS now. But the really mind-blowing thing is that in the similar sort of way to how NPX in the Node.js world sort of allows you to just run something that you haven't even installed from a node module perspective, a node module that has an associated binary, bin, or executable, you can just run stuff and it will download the image, instantiate a container, and it's just ridiculous, right? So I'm going to run this now. I'm just going to show you. I've already got that container there. Let me just go back there. Let's just have a new thing here. If I run that, so what we're saying here is we're going to run this container. The container is Moncho in the Moncho namespace dry. I want to remove the container once it's finished running. I want a sort of an interactive TTY, and I also want to map this volume here, which is really a socket, right? So that it's accessible. So the local Docker socket is accessible to the container in the same as the same name. So if I do that, it's just amazing. So if I can look at all the different all the different images I've got here on my local Docker instance here on Crostini, it's just amazing. It just really blows my mind as to the concept of just running something like that on demand, and the fact that it's something in a Docker container from a Docker image to manage Docker here is just also extra good. So that's that. Where are we? There we go. That was that. One thing I wanted to just put into your brains as a potential project was on GitHub. So I've mentioned GitHub Actions before, which is pretty awesome. And hey, Srikanth. Good morning. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Volker somehow dawns on me from way back when in college. What the... okay. Sorry. Yes, we're still talking about the name, Gargantua Brain. Yes, and in fact, Robertinho, you've got it. It's from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It was the Milliard Gargantua Brain, which is one of the other great computers that Deep Thought referred to when people were questioning why it said itself was the second greatest computer, where the Earth was the first, of course. Anyway, so yes, it's from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I think somebody also said Gargantua medieval. Yes, it was a medieval giant as well. And gargantuan, gigantic. Those all have connotations of huge or large size. Anyway, talking of huge, one huge piece of news last year was that GitHub was beta testing and is now, it's now out of beta, and for people like me, people like us, effectively free for hobby projects, is GitHub packages. Effectively, what it is an npm registry, a Docker registry, a Maven registry, a NuGet registry, that's a .NET, I think, and a RubyGems registry. So basically, you can host, or you can have GitHub host node modules for you in your namespace. So I'm qmacro on GitHub, so it would be at qmacro /something, and there'd be node modules that people could then install and use in their own projects, which is pretty cool. And also Docker images. So this is like the, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to use a word that doesn't even exist. The peopleization. What's the word I'm looking for? The giving to the world, to the people, to the commoners, the commonization of NPM registries. So of course there's the standard NPM registry at npmjs.com, and there's of course the SAP NPM registry at npm.sap.com. And of course, then if you wanted to share a package with somebody in public, you'd have to stick it on the NPM registry or the SAP registry if you're working for SAP. But now you can have your own registry. Okay, Freddie, have a great day at school. Bye. So I would like to play around with that because I think that's really, really an interesting move on GitHub's part. And, it makes it, I can't think of the word. I've not had enough coffee maybe, but it basically gives access to registries to the masses. And the reason I'm thinking of this is because with all the HandsOnSAPDev episodes, there's a lot of metadata there. And if I want, I often find myself wanting to search, oh yeah, what were the episodes that I talked about tmux on? Or what was the episode where I did this, or etc. So if I put together an NPM package, I could use that to find out. I could expose maybe a JSON structure or a small API. As well, I'm also thinking of basically building a little OData service and hosting that on SAP Cloud Platform, doing the same thing. So have a think about that and let me know what you think. Might be useful for us to put that together ourselves. Do a CAP-based OData service and deploy that to Cloud Platform with the metadata from basically all the replays of the HandsOnSAPDev with maybe tags and title and abstract and date and so on, so we could do searches. So yeah, that's that. One more thing, I think. I think that's it basically. Oh yeah, my trial account was deleted because I came to 90 days. Strangely, I don't know how I came to 90 days, but anyway, I'm just very pleased the fact that in this little blog post here that I published a few days ago, or last week, a week before, whatever it was, I sort of showed you a little script that I used to recreate the Business Rules environment in my Cloud Foundry environment. And I ran that this morning and it worked, which was brilliant. It shouldn't be a surprise that it worked, but yeah, it was a nice sort of, okay, less work to do. So we're back to where we were. The Cloud Foundry sub account to which the SAP Cloud Platform sub account to which the Cloud Foundry trial organization is connected was last week called QMacro subdomain. It's now back to the standard one, which is going to be my ID i3474991 trial. Okay. Yes, thank you, Robert Dino. That's good encouragement. Just go for it. Yes, I did talk about searchable annotations before. Sometime, yeah. I mean, it's been in my mind for a while. So anyway, I ran that, and we're back to where we were effectively. And the final thing is just to remind ourselves of where we were. Last week, we'd written a little script, and we managed to call it, but it was failing. And the reason why it was failing was fairly trivial. I was writing this JavaScript, and I'd missed something else. So what we'll do is we'll jump straight into that. So I've taken a copy of that. I'm going to modify that from now on. And we're going to fix that, but also I want to bring in another couple of node modules to make the whole thing a little bit neater. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Let me just remind myself of, I think we've got everything there. In the cockpit, we can look at the trial account. There, as you can see, it's a brand new trial account, and it's the organization name in Cloud Foundry is i3474991 trial, which means, of course, that in my dev space where I pointed my rules.bash script at, the service instance for the Business Rules service here now has in its instance service details, now has not QMacro subdomain, but where is it? There, I347491 trial. That's the authentication endpoint, for example. And of course, we've got a new client ID and a new secret, which again, I'll delete at the end of this session. Hey, morning, John. That's okay. You're not really late. Well, I mean, obviously, technically you are late, but it doesn't matter. You're always welcome. We've just started. In fact, you've just caught me after my initial sort of ramble. So I'm going to bring this terminal back up here, and yeah, let's start. Let's go to where are we? Local projects. What I do is, in my GitHub thing here, I've got different things here, QMacro, and then I've got some of the projects here that episode 43. I don't know what that is. HandsOnSAPDev, and this is actually on GitHub as well. So you can pull all this from GitHub. Where are we? There, GitHub.com QMacro HandsOnSAPDev, and everything we're doing. Oh yeah, there we go. I've just seen that this morning. That's one of the things I've been using before. Everything in there is in an episode folder. Okay, so there we go. So that's the HandsOnSAPDev thing there. Fine. Okay. So we don't need that. In fact, we want to bring back up that thing. Episode 52. What have we got in here? I've sort of downloaded, I had to recreate the airlines discount business rules project. And just in case I have to do it again, I've downloaded the zip file. I've exported that project, and inside I was just curious as to what was in the zip file that was exported. It's just one file, which is this business rules project bit of JSON here, which is quite nice. So that's what we used before. We've used the get token, and I've changed that in these scripts now to now point to, for example, back to the I347491 trial. And yeah, here's our core rule. Okay, so let's go into here. Yeah, core rule. And that's what we had. Okay. I've already changed the access token information to point to the new settings that we've just had a look at. Okay, so and this is what we had. Okay, and what was happening was this. Okay, so let's just go back up here. We were getting this unauthorized. And did anybody see or remember seeing the tweets I put only about 2 minutes after the live stream finished last week? This has happened to me like a couple of times before, hasn't it, in live streams? It's like, oh, end with a problem, something's not working. And then, of course, as soon as I press end live, it's like, oh, of course, that's what it was. Anyway, what the problem was that, in fact, if I, let's bring up the, request npm request promise, that will give us, this is what we were using, right? This is a wrapper around request defaults. There we go, defaults. Let's just go straight to request, I think. Request.defaults. I did see it somewhere. Oh, well, I mean, I don't want to search through the documentation to show you where I found it, but effectively what I was doing was setting here a set of defaults to send on every request. Okay, so I'm creating this new thing called requ, and that requ is then used, that's the thing I use to call post on, right? But of course, this is not just defaults for headers, this is defaults for all sorts of things to do with requests. So in fact, what I missed out was headers. Wrap that baby like that. Okay, so the default headers include this access token in as a bearer token in the authorization header. Okay, so that's what I was missing. So there we go. So let's just save that. That's all we've changed, and let's see if that works. It does. Oh, okay, so we're getting this, regular console log thing. Let's just JSON.stringify. What was it again? Result. There we go. So we're calling the discount rule service with Lufthansa, and we're getting the discount at 10, which is cool. Now, that's what we were trying to get to at the end of last week. But when I was writing this, I was really not keen on a number of things. I mean, this is sort of still like an exploratory script, a proof of concept script, but there are things we can do to make this neater. And one of the things is that, of course, we're sort of hard coding here the access token endpoint, the OAuth endpoint to request an access token from. We are hard coding that and using that in a direct call to this sort of OAuth 2 client module. Okay, and we're also, of course, hard coding the client ID and client secret. Now, these things, as you probably know, if we have a look, in fact, if we have a look in, remind ourselves, in, for example, get token, as I've mentioned before, we're using the netrc mechanism to say, well, read the authorization information, read the credentials from my netrc file, okay? And it will look for the credentials for this particular host here, right? So this one. There we go, that one there. Now, in my netrc, got nothing to hide because these are invalid now. I've left them in just to show you what it would be format-wise if you had multiple machines. And these things here are exactly what I've got in the script. So in fact, if I just open up a new window now, there, and edit call rule index.js, those are exactly those two things. SP clone FE15 4511 and the KRESS 824, etc. So there is, in fact, we got it there, haven't we? There is a netrc package for Node.js, which will allow us to read and parse netrc files, which I think is a lot neater. Okay, so what I want to do is replace that sort of hard-coded stuff and replace it with using netrc. Okay, does that make sense? So what we need to do is require it and then sort of create an instance of it. And that instance there, we can then use to get information about a given machine. Okay, so the github.com in this example is the equivalent of the host name for the authorization endpoint. Okay, and what we get back from that, for example, here is a login and a password property in a map. Okay, so let's bear that in mind. Let's go back to here. So if we say const netrc equals require netrc, and let's sort of abstract these things out. So the UAA host, for example, so this is the user authentication access host, that is going to be canonically that, right? And now we can instantiate, oops. How do you want to do this? Well, actually, why don't we just UAA host netrc new Oh, actually, no, why do we do this? New UAA host is new netrc, like that. Okay, let's see if that works. And then we'll just say console.log UAA host, and then exit. In fact, let's go back into that call room thing here, and we'll have our favorite cd. Where are we again? Q local projects, Q github.com, Q macro, HandsOnSAPDev episode 52, call rule, npx nodemon. Nope, and I did that last time, didn't I? Nodemon. There we go. Missing initializer in const declaration. Okay. Let's just make that a little bit smaller and go across here. Index new netrc. Oh, silly boy. Oh, okay. Cannot find module netrc. Fine. npm install netrc. Of course. Oh, some nice sunshine coming through the window now. Can see it reflecting over there. You're all very quiet. Everything going okay? Let's just do that again. And yeah, okay, perfect. We get what we saw in the documentation. Can you see that behind my head, for example? I'm going to move that down there a bit so you can see that we get the login and the password properties inside a little thing there. So that's nice. So let's go across to here and start doing this. So we can say now the login is the SB clone. So we say UAA host.login, UAA host.password. Okay, that's cool. That should be fine. And now we should get that discount information. Yes, we do. There it is. I never know where to put my head. I guess we're okay, right? But now, the other thing that was sort of disturbing me was the way we're constructing or not constructing URLs. So we've got the URL for the OAuth token request endpoint, which we learned about last week. And we've also got we've got the URL here for the runtime API, the business rule service, okay? And both of these URLs consist of, or composed of, a number of different things. And I don't like to sort of mix everything together because it sort of makes it a little bit messy. And also it sort of reminds me that, you know, the path information that we saw, for example, OAuth token, is specific. You know, it's not some random string. That is an OAuth specific, well-known path. Plus, we're managing hosts in our netrc environment, and those are hosts, you know, host names without any HTTPS prefix, for example, and without any path. So it sort of feels neater to me to think about these URLs in that sort of way. And also, I did find there's a package called URI, okay, where you can basically construct URIs. Well, let me paste that thing in there, netrc, and the URI one there. That's strange that this is not really formatted. Let's go to GitHub. Is there not a link to GitHub? Explore. Blah, blah, blah. I thought there was a link here to GitHub. I'm sure there was a public. Oh well, let's just go to. This is not on GitHub. Maybe this one's not on GitHub. Maybe that's why I can't see a link. Anyway, okay, it doesn't really matter. So we can we can construct a URI with this thing called, I looked it up, serialize. URI serialize. It's not this one. It's not this one. It's URI.js, isn't it? There we go. There we go. That's why I was thinking, where is the GitHub link? It's URI.js. There, that's the one I'm looking for. So we can now create a URI by specifying the scheme, which is, of course, the thing before the : / okay. A lot of people call that the protocol, but it's not. It's called a scheme, like FTP or SSH or HTTP or HTTPS or Gopher. For those of you old enough to remember, and yeah, we can compose a URI by specifying separately the scheme, the host, and also the fragment or the path as well. Okay, we've got the path there. So let's use that. Let's go across here and say npm install URI.js. And then run nodemon again. URI.js, let's call it URI. URI equals require URI.js. And now let's sort of separate those two things out as well, because these are sort of helper modules, and these are the real modules that we're using for real. We've got here now, it's not for us. We've got here now we've got that host name there. So actually what we want to do is say auth host. Yeah, let's do this differently. UAA host and then auth info. I'm coming across this all the time. I never know what to name things. Of course, that's the one of the three hard things, or one of the two hard things in computer science, naming things. Let's call this. Let's call it auth info for now. And then so the UAA host is just that UAA host. There we go. That seems okay. So now we can say here, we're only using this one. So let's put it directly here. We'll get rid of that in a second. Access token URI is URI.serialize. Okay, and we'll have scheme. I've got the thing down here. I'm looking at that down there. Host, which is going to be the UAA host, and the path, which is going to be OAuth token. Now, last week we covered this OAuth token path. We looked at Carlos Rogon's blog post as well, and I referenced that in the annotation blog post to last week's HandsOnSAPDev episode as well. And when we're using the resource owner client password credential OAuth flow, that is the path that is used. There's a well-known path. And when we're using this other flow, which we might play around with next week, if we're interested, then it's a different path. Okay, it's not OAuth token; it's something else. I can't remember what it was. So yeah, it's quite interesting the way that the path is very specific and well known. Fun fact of the day from John: apparently Gopher is still in active use. Is it in active use? I mean, I guess it's still a thing, right? And you can still find some random cobwebby corners of the interwebs. Well, actually, of the internet, very specifically in this case, that have some Gopher servers. I used to use Gopher quite a lot, actually. And there was also WAIS, W-A-I-S. Anyone remember WAIS? Wide Area Information Search or something? WAIS and Gopher were around the same time, somewhere in the 80s, late 80s, I guess, before the web. So yeah, anyway, so that's that. So that's the equivalent of that. So if we now, okay, that's not invalid basic authentication token. Okay, So what we're doing wrong, what are we doing wrong here? Host. Okay, of course. We're not supplying the right things now. This should be auth info, right? There we go. So that's still working now. Let's move that across there. There we go. That's fine. So far, so good. Now, we also want to clean up this other thing here. What else do we want to clean up? Here we go. Yeah, why don't we do this? So we'll add runtime API endpoint. Let's call it that. Equals URI.serialize scheme host. And now in this case, the host is BPM rule runtime.cfapps.eu10.hana.ondemand.com. And in this case, the path is very specifically, when we look at the API, oh, actually, there's something in my memory there. There we go. If we look at the environment stuff, if I log on here to the API business, which we've been using, we'll sort of see, hopefully, a correlation between what we're doing with the URI.js and the API information. So if we look at the environments, look at this environment. Yeah, there we go. See, so the starting URL, let's make this a little bit smaller. So the starting URL is basically the runtime URL. I mean, this is, I've sent some feedback about this to the API Hub folks. That is not a runtime. If that's supposed to go in there, that's not a URL, that's a host name. So call it what it should be, and then we understand it better. So the runtime URL or the runtime host is what we've got in our host parameter for the serialized call. And then we've got a scheme there, and then we have this rules service rest. So that is the fixed path against which individual API endpoints are appended. So for example, if we call, let's cancel that. If we call the invoke rule service, it's going to be rules service rest v2 rule service, right? What we've been calling is the rule service rest v2 working set rule service. And in fact, I think if we press post there, we should see, well, let's run it actually. It doesn't really matter, but we've got the wrong payload, because all we want to see is the URL, right? Execute. There we go. So it's rules service rest. That's the hard coded part, as it were. And then we've got the specific API appendage for this particular API, the invoke rule service, and in this particular case, specifically the working set rule service. So that's that. So now we want to say rules service, just like down there, rules service rest, and that's the reason why we sort of end up cutting off the path there, because then we can say v2. There we go. Oh, well. Runtime API endpoint plus v2 work. There we go. Working set rule service. There we go. Let's put that down there again. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. Let's just put that there for a second. There we go. Working. I knew I had a space somewhere. Working set. In fact, should we leave it like that? That's quite a nice layout, isn't it? You can see the output now. Let's move that down a little bit more. So there we go. So we've got that now, and I think that should be okay. So if we save that, still working. So for me, that's a lot neater. We've got the credentials being retrieved via the netrc module directly. So we've sort of abstracted that away. And we've got our URIs, our authentication endpoints, and also our runtime API endpoint. There we go. I knew it. See, I'm conscious. See that this Cherry MX Blue keyboard is very loud and clicky. So I'm conscious of where I'm not being a good Vim citizen like just then and doing, you know, J down. I should be, you know, I can't talk and type at the same time, but I should be, for example, hitting the close curly brackets to jump down to that next bit. Okay, to highlight that. Gregors, good morning. Lynx was one of the first I used. Yes. So Lynx, was that a browser? Was Lynx Lynx was a browser, wasn't it? Whereas Gopher was, you know, a protocol that served stuff. So you may have browsed some Gopher resources with Lynx. I think I remember using Lynx. I remember using W3M as well. But I also remember what was your first graphical browser? What was your first sort of, you know, GUI browser? My first browser was a browser called Viola, which was pre-Mosaic as well. No, it wasn't Viola. It was Cello and then Viola. I don't know why they had all these sort of, you know, string instruments for names of browsers. Yes, console, exactly, console based. So yeah, my first foray into the web was through a telnet gateway to, you know, a shared host where we ran W3M. Yeah, very, very handy for testing accessibility. But yeah, was it Cello or was it Viola? I think I ran both, and that was on a machine I ran DR-DOS. You know, I refused to run MS-DOS. I ran DR-DOS on it, and it must have been, I must have run Windows on it as well on top of DR-DOS. I can't remember. Netscape was your, okay, Netscape was your first. You know, the original and best Netscape, maybe, what was at the time. Anyway, that actually didn't take as long as I thought it would. One thing that I would like to do as well, and I would like to get your opinion on this. Well, what we're doing right now, let's just zoom this in, right? What we're doing right now is every time we run this index.js, we are requesting a token. And then we're using that token in our sort of, in our request mechanism to go make the call to the API endpoint. Now, it seems to me a little bit wasteful. And I've sort of seen this pattern in myself before when, you know, in the early days when I've been, for example, using an OData service in a UI5 application, and every time I did made an OData call to an OData operation that had a side effect, of course, I had to get a CSRF token, or I had to have a CSRF token, but I requested one every time, right, which is not great. Hey, Hussein, good morning to you. Netscape for you as well. Okay, so yeah, maybe I'm a little bit older. But yeah, so check out Cello and check out Viola. Those are awesomely beautiful web browsers. So what I would like to think about with you, and let me know in the chat right now, what your thoughts on this would be. You know, how would we best go about caching the authorization token? Because as we know, the authorization token is valid for, what was it, 43,200 seconds, which, if memory or calculation serves, is basically 12 hours. So in fact, we can sort of test that, can't we? If we go back here to get token. Yeah, of course we want to eval that, don't we, to export the token. So we've got a token there, EYJHB, just there, EYJHB, etc. So eval get token. So now we've got a token. It's interesting. That's interesting, isn't it? EYJHB. Let's do that again. So we're actually requesting a token each time, and each time it's the same. Okay, so we're actually not hammering, but we're overutilizing the OAuth token service mechanism, and it's giving us back the same token anyway. I wonder if it's going to give us back the token with a different expires in. Let's have a look, shall we? I honestly don't know this either. So let's get token, and we'll just pipe it into that. In fact, why don't we say we'll have? Let's see what it is first. I can't remember what the actual property name is, right? So let's do a get token. There we go. Expires in 43199. So it's not going down. And is it the same token? Yes, EYJHB. That's interesting. So am I reading this right? Help me. Am I reading this right? So we're requesting a token. We're getting this token, which is EYJHBG, blah, blah, blah. Unless I'm looking at, maybe the token is different each time. Maybe the start of the token is the same. That's interesting. Yeah, maybe the start of the token, maybe it's different each time. Because I was expecting, or I was hoping to see that the expires in would be different, would be lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. But that would place maybe more load on the authentication server, wouldn't it? Because they'd have to remember each, cache each token and work out, how much life it had left. What we could do, access token, get token A, B, C, actually, yeah, that'll do actually. We've got A, B, and C. They're all the same size. Diff A, B. Oh, they are different. Okay. Diff B, C. Okay, they're different. So looking at the first few characters of the token wasn't good enough to figure out that these tokens are they're not the same, basically. Okay, that's interesting. So basically, would it be reset every token request? Yes, but Hussein, I think that's what we've determined by poking it with a stick, that actually the tokens are different. So let's have a look at the cat A. Yeah, there we go. Look at the end of cat A. It's LA568, LWNQ, and obviously we don't need to look at the last one, but it's different. Okay, but the start of them, interestingly enough, EYJHB, EYJHB, EYJHB. There we go. So I was mistakenly assuming that if the start was the same, it was going to be the same, but it's not, which explains as well why the expires in is always, when we request a token, always 43199, which is 1 second away from, 1 second less than 12 hours. Okay, so given that, I would like to think about how we would best cache those tokens. Maybe there's already a node module out there to do that for us, but I think it'd be a nice mental exercise to think about, how we would cache and reuse those tokens, because effectively what we also get, if I'm not mistaken, is not only it expires in a number of seconds, but also, I thought, last week, didn't we get a date as well? I thought we got a date. Okay, we can convert that anyway. Okay, Pierre, thanks for joining. We can convert that anyway into a date and then store that in a temporary file and then pull that in. And basically, if it's still valid, we can use it. If it's not, we can remove it. I think that would be a good little exercise. And maybe we could build that together and stick that on the GitHub package registry. But I think I would prefer, if we are going to build something together, I prefer building something that would give us access to the metadata relating to HandsOnSAPDev streams. So have a think about and let me know either here in the chat if you've got immediate thoughts, or once I've written the annotations for this live stream and published them, let me know in the comments to that blog post that will appear what you think about how best, or how what's the most useful way of being able to consume information about the live stream. So I'm searching for live stream episodes that talked about CAP, for example. Yeah, let us know. Okay, Jeremy. Same. Oh, you got to go to the same meeting, of course. Right, that makes sense. Thanks for joining. Okay, yeah, I guess it's 8:56. Let's finish this now without me starting something new. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope that was okay. It was only a little bit of hacking around, yeah, I think next time, I think we'll definitely start looking at building something to do with the HandsOnSAPDev metadata, OData service with CAP, and maybe an NPM module as well. Right, well, I wish you all a great rest of day on Friday. Have a lovely evening as well and weekend, and I'll see you online sometime next week. Bye for now.